Sky Squad, what's up? We're back in the building. We are here with Adam from Up and Adam.
How's it going?
I don't watch OC, but I wanted to say congratulations. I saw that you were featured in Reality Blurb interview with Deb. Was that it?
Yeah, with Dr. Deb. Thank you.
No problem.
Which was interesting because right after she messaged me and she's like, we need to do a weekly show where we counsel couples. I'm like, that is a stretch, Dr. Deb, because I got my associates at a community college. I am no doctor.
She's trying to put you to work.
Yeah, it's as if we're not busy enough. No, I loved her. She was great. And, you know, it's always fun, too, because when I do these interviews, I feel like people are painted in. Usually I go after people who are painted in such a negative light, and I try to find something.
Oh, my God. Those are the ones I like, too.
Yeah, because, you know, the power of editing. I mean, you know.
I've gotten some videos where I did one with Giovanna last year and the cookie lady last year from Atlanta, and people just were not happy about those interviews initially. But I felt like, you know, we didn't really get to hear a lot from those ladies, and I wanted to hear more about their stories and their journeys, and I had questions, and I felt like the audience probably would too.
Who did you, I mean, that's funny that you said that because I never sat down with the cookie lady, but I did sit down with Giovanna and I was so pleasantly surprised by her. Did you have an opinion after?
I honestly love Giovanna.
Yeah.
I do. I mean, I think she's fun. I think she's friendly. I think she got herself in a pretty sticky situation. Yeah. And it was unfortunate because, you know, nobody came out of that looking good. Right. But her as a person, she's awesome.
And when she came out with that Queen, I don't want to get anybody demonetized, but when she came out with her song, I was bobbing to it for like a month. I was like, yeah.
Okay, so this isn't about everything else we're doing. This is about Salt Lake City. Episode 6, we have Mary accusing Jen of being a liar. And we have Jen and the rest of the ladies trying to get Heather some nookie.
Some nookie? Is that what we call it?
I got to come up with the PC way to say it, you know, for the YouTube ears. So nookie is what we'll call it for today. Okay?
Okay, nookie.
So I want to know overall, obviously, as we start this and in the chat, as you guys are watching this, what would you rate this episode 6 of The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City? And Adam, we're giving the honor to you first. Scale of 1 to 10.
I would actually have to give this one probably a 9. I really enjoyed this episode. I enjoyed watching the ladies working and doing things and not just sitting there kind of showing us everything that they're not doing. I mean, Lisa Barlow was busy. Meredith was busy. Heather was vulnerable. Whitney was wild. I enjoyed this episode.
God, that's so funny. So for me, I'm actually going to give it a 6. And
a 6? Why?
Let me tell you why. And it's probably circumstantial. So it's a couple of things. One, this thing comes on too late. I've been complaining about this from the very beginning. Everybody, I feel like, has been complaining about it from the very beginning. It's 10 p.m. It's too late. Secondarily, my Instagram, my DMs, my text messages were going off because Pastor Jamal Bryant had done this whole live with his own binder that he was reading from upside down. Okay. So there was that I was trying to go back and forth. I was trying to watch Salt Lake City, but my messages kept going off. So it was that. And then I went live afterwards. So I didn't even see Jen Shah on Watch What Happens Live. So I need to go back and watch that. So there's that. But outside of that, even as I was rewatching it this morning before we jumped on here, I found myself on my phone doing everything else. I'm going to watch it again. And just put down my phone the entire time I watch it. But to me, I felt like it wasn't a bad episode, but I feel like there was something about it that just wasn't capturing my attention as much. And I don't know what that is. So we'll have to figure it out. Maybe it'll come to me as we kind of work our way through the episode.
That makes sense, though. I mean, that's how I feel when Orange County plays. I don't have to stare at the TV. I can just listen and preoccupy myself. So it's fair.
Yeah, but I like to be, I like to be immersed in the show. Like, I like to notice things that maybe other people didn't notice. Like, and I'm not able to pick up on those little things in this episode. So I kind of just want to go person by person throughout this review.
Okay.
If possible. And I want to start with Whitney. You know, we see Whitney obviously preparing to throw her husband a birthday bash, you know, and she also meets up with Jen prior to that to discuss Mary and Jen not getting along. And she lets us know that they're not going to have any type of altercations at this event. What are your thoughts on Whitney, the birthday party, her sort of sitting Jen aside, as well as her conversation later on with Heather?
You know, I feel like with every episode, I'm having or gaining more and more respect for Whitney because she's really coming into her own. You know, even when Mary said to her, I think it was the past episode, she said something like, "You're 30, girl, you're kind of dismissing her, like you're the youngest one." Whitney she's kind of like the only one who's able to have these tough conversations. She's talking about sobriety. She's sitting the women down saying like, "Listen, you're not going to ruin my husband's birthday party." She's talking to Heather about, you know, coming out of her own and really not focusing on religion and focusing on love instead. She's having these tough conversations. And for a 30-year-old, I have a lot of respect for her. I'm liking her more and more.
Do you think that the issues with her dad kind of maybe forced her to grow up a little faster? And also too, not to mention sort of kind of being a little disowned by the family because of the relationship. It almost feels like for a 30-year-old, she's gone through a lot.
Yeah, it definitely seems like she's lived a full life already. But, you know, yeah, as far as like has going through everything that she's gone through with her dad kind of made her grow up faster, I think absolutely. You know, everybody has their own story. And for me personally, my family went through things that caused me to grow up a lot faster. So 100%, I think, you know, I honestly felt like she was going to come into this show trying to be the quote unquote dumb blonde or like, "What do you mean?" And just kind of silly with that mentality. But I'm pleasantly surprised and impressed by her.
I would have to agree. And it's interesting to me because I wasn't expecting her to be as immersed in relationships with as many of the ladies as she seems to be. But I'm really interested to see the dynamic that's going to develop between her and Meredith, or I should say lack thereof a dynamic, because I feel like there's going to be some rocky roads ahead for them.
Yeah.
So, speaking of Meredith, I want to dive into her next because I'm going to have to, again, rewatch the episode. Meredith typically interests me a lot more than some of the other ladies, but I wasn't as tuned in to what she had going on this week. And I don't know why. While I did enjoy her new white confessional where she's in the white dress and the hair slicked back, I thought she looked amazing there.
Did you like that look?
I, for some reason, liked it. And I know that I feel like it's a tricky look to pull off. But something about it, I enjoyed.
I wasn't a fan of that look. But again, I don't have style, so you can't ask me.
I liked it because I felt like she edged it up a little bit. You know, I don't know. It's weird. But the thing about style, Adam, is everybody is different. You know,
it's subjective.
It's subjective. So you kind of build on what you like and do what you like, and that becomes your style. But for overall, we see Meredith and Brooks preparing for Brooks's fashion show. when Meredith is getting dressed and she's getting that dress put on her, was that a Brooks number or was that just something she was trying on? I wasn't clear about that. And then are his stuff just the tracksuits?
I think his stuff is just the tracksuits. I don't think that was a Brooks number, but speaking of these two, I can't wait to just get into the dynamic of these two. Brooks, I like him. I think he's a breakout star for Salt Lake City, but he comes off a little spoiled.
Yeah. Yeah. A little entitled, I would say, as well.
Where he's it's like Meredith is his assistant.
Exactly. It feels like that. And I guess I was struggling because while I understand that this was his first fashion show and for him to be so young, that's a really big accomplishment, even though it's just the tracksuits, but I don't want to diminish that because for someone to find a manufacturer, put all these things together, and I'm sure he had probably some help from Meredith, but for him to develop that enterprise, it's a big deal for someone his age.
Right.
I'm not going to take that away from him. I guess the thing that I was kind of over was the idea that the expectation that the dad was going to be there and the disappointment surrounding it. I was a little over that because I'm like, this man is never around, right?
Well, I kind of was taken aback as the episode played out. I didn't realize the only reason he wasn't there was because she sent him home. I thought regardless he wasn't going to be there, but I didn't realize when, they have that moment and he's like, well, maybe if I leave, you'll find what you're looking for. And she said, I don't disagree. I didn't realize that kind of took him away from the fashion show. Now it makes more sense because
I thought it was just because of work.
Well, that's what they were playing off of in the beginning. And then in her confessional, she was saying, she's like, now I kind of feel bad because I'm not protecting my children when Seth could have been here. But, I sent him away because we needed our space. And I was like, oh, this makes more sense.
That was the problem. But what's funny though, if that was my son, it doesn't matter what she said. I would have hopped on a plane and been there to support him and then left. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because even though she set that rule up and I feel like that was bad timing on her part and a poor choice that she obviously felt like she needed to make for herself. For her son, no, that was the wrong choice because ultimately he misses out on that.
Which is, listen, I was looking at a lot of the comments and people are like, Brooks is a spoiled brat and he's this and he's entitled, and be that what it may, whatever you want to say, it doesn't matter. The kid wanted support from his family. He not
Absolutely.
only wanted his mom to be there, he wanted his sister, his brother, and his dad to be there. And you can't take that away from anybody. This is a big moment in his life, a big accomplishment. And it might even be part of the reason he was acting out the way he was in that moment where we see him getting ready for the fashion show.
Yeah. And I don't, to be quite honest with you, I feel like he's, college age. He's going through things. His parents are not together. I kind of feel like I give him a little bit more slack than I think most people, because I just realized he hasn't grown into the man that he's going to become. And if we all look back at ourselves in previous phases of our lives, we probably won't like what we see.
I'm so happy I'm not on a reality show. No, I would hate myself. Yeah, no, thank God. I would never want to look back.
Right? Think about some of the bad choices, the things that you might have said or done. It's like, come on, y'all. Like we can't go so hard on the kids because they gotta grow.
Yeah, no. And I mean, especially he's going to watch himself just like any first season housewife. For some reason, they've decided to incorporate Brooks a lot into this season already. Because
and it was a smart choice.
Yeah, it was. And he's entertaining, but he's going to look back just like every first time housewife and rewatch himself on the show and be like, oh my God, I can't believe I said that. Or, wow, what is the, and he's going to kind of evaluate every single scene that he's in. And now next season, when he's in more scenes, he's probably going to change certain things about himself. or how he's portrayed.
I want to get into your thoughts on Jen this episode.
Okay.
So we initially see Jen in the beginning. For those who may have not seen the episode, we see her roller skating through her office with her number one assistant, and they're planning supposedly for the parties for Sundance, right? Because this is a big Sundance episode. So we also see her preparing for a party at her house. We see her going to meet up with Whitney as Whitney kind of lightly schools her about not making a scene with Mary, but doesn't overtly say that. We also see the scene with Jen and Mary coming to finally coming face to face after their big altercation at Mary's luncheon. And Jen does not recall calling Mary a grandpa MFer. Okay. And then at the end, we also see Jen hosting a party at the chalet for, is it her cousin?
Yeah.
Okay, for her cousin who has, I guess, a documentary. And we see her trying to hook up Heather with I guess, I mean, there's no other way to say it, but a brother, a black dude, okay? Because that's what Heather likes, okay? So thoughts on Jen this episode?
You know, it was interesting to see Jen's actual workplace, her workspace, and kind of seeing like, oh, okay, you do have a job. This is your space. You run a business, and I love seeing this part of her. And she looks like she's scary, and she's a lot of fun. I mean, when she's running around and she's telling her puppets or her assistants, whatever you want to call them, and she's like, "Clap for me, clap or you're fired." It's like this is intense, but that is Jen Shah. You know, I'm liking her more and more. When she said that she doesn't recall calling Mary a grandpa, you know, I can relate to that because you watch her and she storms out of this 20s party and she's screaming and she's like just going off the wall, right? But she obviously had a few too many drinks, and I think that I don't want to speak for everybody. I've been there. I've been in that space where I've just completely lost it and I don't remember it. And then the next day, my friends have shown me a video or a photo or a recording where they're like, "Do you remember this?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, no." And they're like, "Yes." And there was a lot of people around and I would just be completely embarrassed. So I could see where she might not have remembered in that moment, especially with the cameras around, with all of the tequila that she had, and then everything else in between. Not remembering calling her a grandpa, you know, but obviously she didn't say anything that's not known. This is true. You married your grandfather, whether he's step, blood, whatever, you married him. So she's not calling you anything that oh gosh, this is, you got to handle this with kid gloves. This is just a joke.
I will agree with you. I was excited to see Jen at work. I kind of had, because I've been following her for a while on social media, I kind of already knew what she did. I was just waiting for us to see it displayed on camera because I felt like we really needed to see what she does. Like, why do you have all these assistants? Can we see what you do at work? Like, let the audience into that part of her world. For me, I want to know a little bit more about how she operates her business. I want to see a little bit more of Jen in boss mode, and hopefully we'll get more of that as the episodes go on. I mean, it was fun to see her roller skating through the office, but I want to see her, you know, interacting with her team with a client, you know, with whatever the business is doing. I want to see that.
Right.
Just because I think it makes her a more well-rounded character on this show. And the other thing that I would say is that I felt like I'm liking that I'm seeing softer versions of her as well as we kind of maneuver throughout this whole season, because it's nice to see that she can pop off, but it's also nice to see that even as angry as she was with Mary from the previous episodes, you know, she had dialed it back a lot in her conversation with Mary, almost to the point of being apologetic. And obviously it's for the sake of getting along to get along. But, you know, I felt like the two times that she's actually tried to come back to Mary at the luncheon, and then here, I did feel like she came a lot more graciously than Mary came into the situation. I appreciated that because I felt like we as the audience need to see that side of Jen equally as much as we need to see her popping off on somebody because that's entertaining. But we don't want to be. Yeah.
You said that you didn't want to see her popping off every episode because eventually that's going to be tiring.
Yeah, and then it doesn't come across as genuine. It could come across like, oh, playing up for the cameras. And I felt like this felt like a more real interaction where she's trying to explain herself. Mary's trying to explain herself. That's how real people, I feel like, engage with each other when they're not agreeing. You know what I mean? It just felt more real to me.
No, I agree.
I've been in that same situation that you have where you've had, and for those who don't know, we actually kind of touched on this situation. You're a Cancer. What day is your birthday?
July 6th.
So mine is the 16th. So we're both Cancers, right? So highly emotional individuals. So one thing that I've learned is for me, I can only have like 2 drinks. 2 drinks is my max at this point, and maybe add in a shot or something like that. But outside of that, I don't like to drink any more than that because I will have those moments where I say something that I regret and I may not remember everything that I said. So I get it. But I also get that Mary is like, you lying because you did say that, you know? It's a tough situation to be in. And I think Jen in her confessional even said, I mean, I might have said it when I was drunk. I don't know. And I like that she owned it, even though she didn't own it in the moment. You know what I mean?
But she even said, she's like, I know I didn't say it to you because I never had a conversation with you. I would have remembered that. But she's like, I might have been talking about it with somebody else. Yes, which made sense. That made sense.
Yeah, and I thought it was semantics to me because the way Mary is describing it is as though Jen said it directly to her. And the way Mary felt it was as though Jen said it to her. But that was not the case.
It's so funny that Mary feels all of these things so hard, but she doesn't understand how she makes other people feel.
Speaking of Mary, let's talk about her. Mary, we don't see that much of her in this episode, but what we do see is hilarious. So we get a scene with Mary getting ready for Whitney's party for her husband. She's in her home. And she's with her. I literally had to write this thing down. I was like, what? She's with her grandmother's brother's daughter.
Yeah.
Correct. Okay.
Yep.
And she says she's been with me for 20 years, but I don't know her. I was like, what? How do you not know you? See, this is where she confuses me. And again, I love the confusion of it all, but I don't get it. How do you not know? How do you claim to not know this girl? You were dancing with her in your closet. It made absolutely no sense to me.
And she says that she first came around when they had, when she had her son and she fell in love with the son. So she never wanted to leave. It's like, well, you don't know this person who's been this hands-on with your child for this long, but I don't know. Again, with every episode, I try to give her the benefit of the doubt and I try to learn to like her and I try to find something that I do like about her. But somebody who is this godly figure, who is the leader of a church and who is trying to spread love and joy and kind of bring people together, this doesn't feel like, she doesn't exude that. You know what I mean? You don't know her. This sounds like you're trying to be that kind of sarcastic, cute, like, I don't know her. I don't have time for that. It's like, that's not cute. This is not a friend. This is your family member who's lived in your house for the last 20 years, who takes care of your son. Give her a little bit more respect, because just like Jen Shah's aunt is seeing the amputated legs comment, this woman is going to watch this and see this comment, and it's nasty.
Yeah, it's confusing to me. I mean, that poor girl, as well as her poor parishioners who she was calling poor, allegedly. I know that you heard the audio as well. I'm sure it's been making its way around the internet. What were your thoughts on that real quick before we move on?
It shows. Sometimes I'm hoping that she acts this way for the cameras, right? And that she's just putting on this facade. She maybe built up a character in mind of who she wanted to portray or how she wanted to be portrayed on the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. But then when you have these like audio clips come out and they're just showing that, you know, she really is this person. She has the ability to be very vile and nasty and just intense. She's very intense. It's not just the eyes, it's the personality, the persona, her words. I don't like the foot that she leads with. I'm personally not a fan of Mary Cosby.
Oh my God, I've never heard that before, but I like it.
Yeah.
I don't like the foot that she leads with.
Oh, yeah.
I like that. You know, again, I've said it before. She gives me Kim Richards vibes. And, you know, unfortunately, I feel like I don't know that Salt Lake City would be the same without Mary. I mean, there's zany housewives who I feel like just make the show, right? Ramona is one of those housewives. I felt like Kelly Ben Simone was one of those housewives.
I thought you were about to say Dodd. I was like, I know he's not going to say Kelly Dodd.
I'm not giving her any ounce of shine in a video of mine anymore. I feel like Taylor Armstrong was one of those types of housewives. Brandy Glanville, kind of one of those types of housewives. Camille has become one of those types of housewives. And I just think that you never really understand their motivations. They say the weirdest things and the wildest stuff, but you need one of those around in every city to keep things exciting, you know, and to keep things like, did that just really happen? Because I feel like that's a housewife staple. That's what we come to enjoy about a lot of these franchises. But, you know, for some people, you could take or leave them. But I just feel like they tend to make the show, the city, what it is. And I feel like Beverly Hills has suffered since. That's my thought.
Well, that's actually, I think that's fair. Just by the way, I think that's fair because if you think about the Salt Lake City cast and you take Mary out of it, as much as some of us love to hate her or love to love her, yeah, what really what dynamics would you really have, you know? So yeah, that's true. She is a big part of the show.
Let's talk about another big part of last night's episode, and I guess the person who was a big part of the episode, and that is Lisa Barlow. I find Lisa Barlow a little problematic on the show because I like her. I think that I would like her outside of the show. But in terms of the show, what I do think I like about her is the fact that she can bring in the big events somewhat. And and here's what I mean by that. Housewives, to me, the best housewives are the ones who have the great events, the fancy events. Lisa Vanderpump was great for this. You know what I mean? Even Kyle Richards is great for this. Having these over-the-top, extravagant events where, you know, all the ladies come together. We love that about housewives. At least I do. And so I feel like this season, Whitney has given us some great events. Jen Shah has given us some great events. Mary gave us a wild event. You know, but we weren't ever really invited into any of Lisa's events. Were we?
No, not really. I mean,
exactly. So we got a whole episode of her running around the city, but we as the audience never made it to the event. How does that work?
Maybe next episode we might make it to an event.
It goes back to what we actually know of Lisa as a person on the inside. Not a lot. We see a lot of things happening on the surface. We hear a lot of how she preaches that she is, and this is not a knock against her, but we don't really know much about the inner workings of Lisa.
No, that's fair. We know what she wants us to know, and they even say that in the confessional with her. Well, I mean, it's fair with with her husband, and her husband's like, yeah, we make a great team. We this, we that. And producers were like, did Lisa coach you on this interview? And he's like, I can neither confirm nor deny that. And it's like, yes, absolutely, she coached him. But she was the one who actually rallied these women together for the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, right? So technically, she's like our Kyle Richards. And Kyle Richards, I
think Charisse did the same thing for Potomac.
Well, and look where that got her, technically. Uh-oh, Lisa Barlow.
I don't know. All I know is that I do feel like she's not bringing what the rest of the ladies are bringing. And for her to be the queen of Sundance, I want to see the extravagant events. I want to see the output of all the hard work that she obviously is putting in. I want to see why she's the queen of Sundance. Because according to Katie Maloney, she's not.
I was about to say, Katie Maloney did say that. And, you know, I thought it was funny the shade that Heather Gay was throwing when she was like, actually, what I think her name was Catherine, the woman that they went to her house for Whitney's husband's birthday. She's like, this is the real queen of Sundance. But, you know, when Katie Maloney called her out about, you know, not knowing who she actually is and not actually being the queen of Sundance, Lisa Barlow reacted with, I didn't give myself that title. Everybody else did. So I just kind of go with it. Speaking of which.
Yeah, but then, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, what did you think about those two joining in this episode? Why?
In an ideal world, if let's say pre-2020, okay? And that's indicative of a lot of things being very different from how they are now, right? Pre-2020, this would have been a great tie-in because ideally Vanderpump Rules would have been on as well. And the things that we have seen, probably they hadn't happened yet. You know, Vanderpump Rules would probably still be that show that everybody was still watching and talking about. So this would have felt a lot more impactful pre-2020. But in 2020, I didn't need it.
Yeah, I was about to say, watching it, I was kind of like, oh, okay. I don't know if this is like a cameo reach or what this is, but I could have. When you say you could take it or leave it, I could have definitely have left it. I didn't really need that either.
I mean, I guess if it was, you know, if maybe it had been some other, like a housewife, like some other housewives, I would have been like, okay. But I guess because Katie's from Utah, I think it made sense. But I don't know. I felt like I'm impressed. I don't know.
Did it feel forced to you?
It felt forced. It felt like we want to get a crossover.
Right.
I don't know.
Okay. I was wondering if you felt the same way about it.
I wasn't even going to include them in my recap. I had forgotten about them, to be quite honest with you. I think I've beaten the Lisa Barlow horse a bit. Heather, let's end it out with Heather. Thoughts on Heather this episode, because I love the way they pieced together Heather's story. And for those who haven't seen it yet, just to give you guys a little bit of a clue, she talks in this episode about really not enjoying the fact that her expectations of marriage were not fulfilled. And she sort of resents seeing Whitney so happy in her own marriage, because she thinks that because Whitney broke the mold of what she was supposed to do, she found her happiness, and she regrets that she didn't find her own. And so the ladies spend quite a bit of time trying to hook her up so that she can get her groove back at Jen's party. Thoughts on Heather this episode?
Did you see how she delivered that line to Whitney, and Whitney's face when she told her, like, I kind of resent you for this? Whitney's face at first was like, what? This is news to me. But yeah, she was shocked. But when Heather started to elaborate on what she actually meant, it made more sense, But for Heather, I'm shocked every episode with her. I think she comes out more and more. She didn't want to do certain things because the people in Salt Lake City, Utah or Park City, whatever city. But the Mormon community, she felt like they were going to look at her a certain way. Listen, girl, now that you're on this platform and you've said everything that you've said, they're going to look at you a different way anyways. She goes on and she's like, I don't need love. I just need lots of, and it's like, what? Did you just say that? And she's like, oh, that sounded kind of vulgar, didn't it? Can we just delete that?
It was the pause though. Like after she said it, it was just like, oh snap, she just said that. I loved it. I loved everything about Heather in this episode. And I love her on the show in general because I feel like she's just a true gem to watch in this whole situation because she does not hesitate. She's just vulnerable. She's just open to life and to what this new journey is going to bring her, regardless of how it makes her look. That to me it's like the antithesis of Mary to a certain degree. Mary seems to move through life blithely unaware of how she comes across to people, which is what you want, because I feel like this is just her. Love it or hate it, she's being herself, completely lacking self-aware, like any self-awareness, but it's great. Whereas you have Heather, who's just a different type of person who is wanting to become more aware. It's just, I don't know, it's just a beautiful thing for me to see.
You know, I want to say two things really quick. One, I'm going to Google antithesis after this. And two, I see now, you know, even as problematic as Mary Cosby can be, just with some of the things that she says and her lack of awareness, I see why Andy Cohen said before the season started that his two favorite housewives, or the two front runners of this season, were going to be Mary Cosby and Heather Gay, because they're completely vulnerable. Like, the thing is, Lisa Barlow wants to be portrayed completely as perfect, and that's fine. That is her thing, but she wants everything in her life to be perfect. Love that. This is beautiful. Everything's great. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. But for us, we know that that's not how life really works. And for the viewers, people are like, get off the screen. Like, that doesn't make sense. Whereas Heather Gay comes on and she's like, these are the problems that I'm dealing with. This is really who I am. I want to kind of shine out and be the person that I want to be. And Mary Cosby, I don't know what she is, but she's her own thing. And I can see why he picked them both as the front runners. I even think Whitney Rose is right there with them too.
Absolutely.
Because she's dealing with very real problems, and she's conflict resolution, and that's what makes her a great housewife.
And I would even wager to throw in Meredith to that, because the interesting thing about Meredith is I believe she came into this thing wanting to, not in the same way that Lisa does, but wanting to show the best sides of herself and her business. But there was no way that she could do this and not open up. And I felt like it was almost accidental, the way we are starting to see her. I don't want to say unravel, because that's not the right word, but I would almost say blossom, because I feel like as she watches this back, that moment that you just talked about, how she was, when she was crying and she was saying that I think she said something about how she failed her kids. When she watches that moment back, that is going to be a moment of, it should be a moment of growth for her, because I feel like there's no other way that you would have seen that in real life. Unless she had done this show, she would not have been able to see how her decisions were affecting her kids unless she had seen this show, because ultimately it seems like she would have just gone on about her way, acting somewhat selfishly, but for her own mental sanity at that point.
Yeah, well, I also want to say really quick too, she held this marriage together, not just her, but obviously her and Seth, they kept it together all the way until their youngest, Khloe, went into college. You know, if in fact they are in a unhappy marriage, or Meredith is missing something in that marriage that Seth maybe can't offer her. I don't know. Again, at the virtual premiere party, they were both there together. They looked extremely happy together, but again, who knows? But for her, how long do you sit here and, kind of bite the bullet in the fact that like you have to sit here and play house and family for your kids? Your kids are now grown. So if Seth wasn't able to make Brooke's fashion show, he could have gotten a hotel, or he could have done something else. There's another way that should have not just been on her shoulders. That could have been on Seth's shoulders. And if you're unhappy, what do you wait till your kids are 30, 35, 40? They have their own lives and they don't need you anymore. And then all of a sudden you decide to be happy? No way.
Right.
You raised them. So she shouldn't be feeling the weight of the world on her shoulders and feeling like she missed the mark or she's a bad mom in any capacity, because you can tell from the cameras and from the way that her kids react to her on social media and on TV that they love her. She's a great mom.
Yeah. I think it's so many layers to that situation that I'm very interested to see how it plays out. Clearly they love each other, but clearly I think there is some resentment because she has had to give up sort of so much to follow him and keep relocating their family, which is just like, it's hard. As you know, it's hard to move, and it's a lot to adjust to, especially when you have a family. So
yeah,
I don't know.
I agree with that. But one thing that I'm interested in seeing in the episodes to come, Meredith reached out to Whitney to do this fashion show, and Whitney was like, well, I've never been in a fashion show. And by the way, when she said, don't fall down the stairs with that maniacal laugh, I was just dying for a second. But she's sitting there and trying to give Whitney this opportunity. Not like Whitney's trying to be Gigi Hadid or anything, but she reached out to her and she wanted to give her a moment. And then all of a sudden we see Whitney in future episodes talking about Meredith potentially having a new fling interest or something like that with Jen Shah. It's like,
I know. That's why I said rocky roads ahead.
We'll have to see. Whitney, don't make us not like you.
Well, we need a little bit of that. I mean, with the salt has to come the pepper, with the sugar has to come the spice. And I think that's what makes for a really good housewife is that, and I said it in a review, I think of Potomac, is that the great thing about Housewives is that, everybody's wrong and everybody's right.
Well, that's fair too, because like you just said, with the salt has to come, your analogies, those make sense, because you don't want the sweet, like you can't always be sweet on the show, because if you're sweet the whole season, guess where you're going to find yourself? Not on the next season. So.
And that is a word, Lisa Barlow. Adam, thank you so much for recapping this with me. Tell the people where they can find you.
Yeah. No, again, thank you for having me as always. It's always a blast with you. You can find me on YouTube at Up and Adam, or on Instagram at Adam, CoYNEWELL. I appreciate that.
And guys, make sure to go check out Adam's latest feature in Reality Blurb, featuring his interview with Deb, who is the mother of Bronwyn from the Real Housewives of Orange County. Make sure to go support that and Reality Blurb as well. And guys, you know what? We'll see you in the next video.
Bye, guys.